Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Siboga TV, which is your #1 online political channel. And today we want to look at various strategies that Rigathi Gachagua is putting forward to hinder or to reduce the influence of Fred Matiang'I'S, which is actually moving across the nation like wildfire. Because as you can understand, since the time when Fred Matiang'I'S came into the Republic and declared that he is going to stop for presidency, let come 2027, his influence or his political influence is actually moving across the nation like wildfire. And Fred Matiang'I'S identified himself with the side of opposition, which comprises the Wamnyoro group and which include Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, Martha Karua, Rigathi Gachagua, Eugene Wamalwa, and himself. But Rigathi Gachagua is not feeling very well about the influence that Fred Matiang'I'S is actually enjoying, because Rigathi wants to have a situation where he is influencing the Wamnyoro group. And for him to influence that group, he must be the one to be on top. And Fred Matiang'I'S should not be enjoying that influence and should never be perceived to be the top person who is going to stop at presidency, let come 2027. But the influence of Fred Matiang'I'S is actually being felt across the Republic of Kenya, and it is actually moving like wildfire. And because of that, Rigathi is actually laying down strategies to slow that pace of Fred Matiang'I'S influence reaching all corners of the Republic. And he's doing that with the mind of actually influencing the entire Wamnyoro group. So that is actually what I want us to have a candid discussion about. We want to see what are the various strategies that Rigathi is putting forward to slow down the influence of Fred Matiang'I'S across the Republic. And at the end, I will explain whether those strategies are going to bear fruit or not. But before we dive in and try to dissect all that, I could request you kindly to take a minute or two and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Give this video a like, share the video to your friends, and if your friends are lovers of politics, it's good to request them to subscribe to this YouTube channel. And whenever you subscribe to our YouTube channel, always remember to hit the notification bell, because by hitting the notification bell, then you will always be notified by YouTube so that you can watch any political content that we upload into YouTube. And also, for those ones who have subscribed to our YouTube channel and they always keep watching our videos, I say thank you so much, because you are behind our inspiration to continue coming up with this kind of political analysis. And now, let us go back to the discussion of the day. how or the strategies that Rigathi Gachagua is laying down to slow the influence of Fred Okengo Matiang'i spreading across the republic like wildfire. One of the things that Rigathi is doing is actually to paint Fred Okengo Matiang'i as a person who comes from a very small tribe, who has little shares to the national table. Because recently, when Rigathi Gachagua was being interviewed by the Egesa, he said that he don't see Fred Okengo Matiang'i influencing the entire Gusii region the way he is influencing Mount Kenya. And he said that he is not convinced that Fred Okengo Matiang'i can influence the entire Gusii region. And that is why he said that we have people who are pulling behind Fred Okengo Matiang'i. And that is a strategy that Rigathi is using to show that Fred Okengo Matiang'i is not in charge in the Gusii nation, and therefore he cannot be able to control the nation. So Rigathi is trying to show the public that Fred comes from a very small tribe, and that means he cannot lead the nation. Another strategy that Rigathi is laying down to slow the pace of the influence of Fred Okengo Matiang'i is that he is telling Rigathi that you must come up with your own political party, and your political party will be based in the Gusii nation. And what Rigathi is doing is trying to make Fred Okengo Matiang'i to fall into his trap by starting a village party, by starting a regional party. Because as you know, Rigathi is actually being seen as the Mount Kenya kingpin. He also wants to make Fred Okengo Matiang'i to be seen as the Gusii kingpin. And if he will be able to make Matiang'i to fall into that trap, it means now Fred Okengo Matiang'i is going to run behind Rigathi as a second fiddle. Because now Fred Okengo Matiang'i will be seen as a kingpin of Gusii. And as you know, if you are made to be seen as a kingpin of Gusii, the number of votes you will be controlling will be below 2.5 million votes. And because Rigathi will be seen as a person who is controlling more votes in the entire Mount Kenya region, he will have more numbers when he goes to the national table. So I feel that Fred Okengo Matiang'i should not fall into that trap. And I feel that once Fred Okengo Matiang'i is going to have his own political party, he should actually go and use already formed political parties, like the party which is called Jubilee. Because if he is able to use Jubilee, and as you know, the leader of Jubilee is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, who comes from Mount Kenya. And also, the Secretary General of Jubilee also comes from Mount Kenya. If he goes and uses that party, he will start as a national leader. He will be seen as a person who has not actually formed a regional party or a tribal party. And that means he will elevate himself as a national figure, because already Fred Okengo Matiang'i is being seen as a national figure, and that is why his influence is far-reaching. Because if you go to any part of the Republic, the word Fred Okengo Matiang'i will be influenced in that part of the Republic. But if you talk about Rigathi, people will tell you that is a tribal leader. He only wants to influence Mount Kenya. And because of that, Rigathi is seen actually to play a second fiddle to Fred Okengo Matiang'i. But Rigathi doesn't want that to happen. And that is why he's telling Fred that you must have your regional party. You must have your tribal party. And if Fred will fall to that, then you will actually play a second fiddle to Rigathi Gachagua. Another thing that Rigathi is doing to reduce the influence of Fred Okengo Matiang'i is actually coming up with the share factor. He's trying to tell the people of this nation that for you to go to the national table, you must have the influence of your entire tribe behind you or your entire region behind you. And that is why he's trying to talk about Raila Amolo Odinga, that Fred Okengo Matiang'i should not go to have a talk, to have a discussion with Raila Amolo Odinga, but should come to the national table as Fred Okengo Matiang'i, as a person who has a political influence from the Gusii nation. But what Rigathi is doing is actually lowering the influence of Fred Okengo Matiang'i if he comes up with the share factor. Because if we are looking at the share factor and we are looking at the pace where a certain political leader is coming from, then you will find that because the Gusii nation has a small voting bloc, and the entire Mount Kenya has a bigger voting bloc, then automatically Fred Okengo Matiang'i will move to the national table with a smaller bloc of voting, and the Rigathi will come to that national table with a bigger voting bloc, and hence Fred Okengo Matiang'i is going to play a second fiddle to Rigathi. So Rigathi is trying to have those strategies so that he can lower the influence of Fred Okengo Matiang'i. And actually, I don't see whether those strategies are going to work, because the way Fred Okengo Matiang'i prepared himself and actually entered the political arena, he did it very smart. And the first thing which Fred Okengo Matiang'i did, he actually came into a political arena as a Kenyan. And because of that, he has a bigger influence in the entire republic. And that is why his influence is actually moving across the nation as wildfire. Fred Okengo Matiang'i actually represented himself to the people of Kenya as a Kenyan. And that is why you hear Fred Okengo Matiang'i always talking about shunning political, tribal politics. You heard what he said when he was in Wamnyoro. He said that a Kenyan who is in Nyamira is suffering the same way a Kenyan who is in Mount Kenya. A Kenyan in Mombasa is suffering the same way like a Kenyan in Northeastern. And he said that we should come up as a nation and try to rebuild this nation forward. And he told the people that he is ready to work with that kind of people, that kind of leaders, so that they can take this nation forward. And he said that let us not be divided into our political cocoons. And therefore, already, Fred Okengo Matiang'i knows very well that if he represents himself as a tribal leader, then his influence will be lowered. And that is why Fred Okengo Matiang'i is not going to fall into cheap traps by Rigathi. And also, I feel that Fred Okengo Matiang'i is going to use an already formed political party to stop at presidency. I don't expect that Fred Okengo Matiang'i is going to come up with a small party, with a village party. He is going to use already formed party to stop at presidency. And that's why I feel that Fred Okengo Matiang'i will use Jubilee as a vehicle to stop at presidency late come 2027. And the wood of using already established party like Jubilee is that Jubilee is being seen as a national party. At the same time, the leaders who are within the Jubilee, most of them, they come from Mount Kenya. And once Fred Okengo Matiang'i is going to use that vehicle, that Jubilee party, probably is going to compete with Rigathi Gachagua in Mount Kenya, because that party will always also be identified as a Mount Kenya party. And that is what Rigathi is fearing a lot. Because if he uses Jubilee, then to the people of Mount Kenya, they will see that Fred Okengo Matiang'i has been brought forward by their son, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, who they never listened to, and that's why they are suffering. And because of that, it is going to happen that Fred Okengo Matiang'i will be more acceptable in Mount Kenya, and the influence of Rigathi Gachagua is going to come down. And that is what Rigathi don't want to happen. And that is why he is telling Fred Okengo Matiang'i that come up with your party, which has an influence actually originating from the Gusii nation. Then you can come to the national table, because he knows that if he will, the Fred will fall into that trap, he will come to the national table as a second fiddle to him. But I don't see that strategy working at all. At the same time, if you look the way Rigathi Gachagua, Fred Okengo Matiang'i is actually introducing himself to the people, he's using a strategy of putting Kenyans together, of inspiring Kenyans. He's not going to Gusiland to inspire only the Gusii people, but he is coming up as a leader who wants to unify Kenya together. But if you look at the side of Rigathi is trying to cut Kenya into pieces, into tribal blocks, into regional blocks. And because of that strategy that Fred is using, that is why his influence is far-reaching across the nation, which is really making Rigathi to get worried. And at the same time, the way Fred Okengo Matiang'i is actually messaging to the people of Kenya, or the way is passing his information to the people of Kenya, he is making the people of this republic to resonate himself very well, because that kind of messaging, that kind of talking with Kenyans and not talking with his tribe is making him to be known by the Kenyans as a national leader. And that is why I feel that all the strategies that Rigathi is trying to put forward to slow down the influence of Fred Okengo Matiang'i, actually they are falling flat. And at the end, Fred Okengo Matiang'i will be more popular than he is today. And that will put Rigathi into a more awkward situation. My fellow listeners, what other strategies do you see Rigathi putting forward to slow the pace or the influence of Fred Okengo Matiang'i? Please drop your comment in the comment section below. And if this is your first time to bump into this YouTube channel, I request you kindly to take a minute and subscribe to this YouTube channel, hit the notification bell, and share our video to your friends. And for those ones who have subscribed to our YouTube channel, I say thank you. May God bless you all abundantly, because you really inspire us to continue coming up with this kind of political analysis. And with that, I say thank you until we meet in our next political discussion. Goodbye.